Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the life of a man whose words literally sparked a revolution. He was a corset maker, a tax collector, a writer, a philosopher, and a firebrand who arguably did more to rally the American colonists to independence than anyone else. Yet, his name is often overshadowed by others like Washington, Jefferson, and Adams. We're talking about the one and only Thomas Paine. So, who was this guy? Thomas Paine was born in Thetford, England, in 1737. His early life was pretty unremarkable. He came from a humble background, tried a bunch of different jobs, and failed at most of them. He was a staymaker, a privateer, a teacher, and a tax officer, a job he was fired from not once, but twice. By his mid-30s, Paine was broke, separated from his wife, and seemingly going nowhere. His life was, for all intents and purposes, a series of failures. But then, a chance meeting in London changed everything. He met Benjamin Franklin. Franklin saw something in Paine, a spark, a brilliant mind, and a fiery spirit. He encouraged Paine to emigrate to America, even writing him a letter of recommendation. So, in 1774, at the age of 37, Thomas Paine arrived in Philadelphia with little more than that letter in his pocket. He was sick, penniless, and had no idea that in less than 2 years, he would become one of the most famous men in the American colonies. Paine quickly found work as a writer and editor for the Pennsylvania magazine. This is where he honed his skills, writing about everything from the abolition of slavery to the potential of American independence. The air in the colonies was thick with tension. There were protests, boycotts, and skirmishes like the one at Lexington and Concord. But most colonists were still on the fence. They were angry at British policies, sure, but the idea of completely breaking away from the most powerful empire on earth, that was a radical, terrifying thought. Many still hoped for reconciliation. They needed a push. That push came in January 1776, in the form of a 47-page pamphlet titled Common Sense. This wasn't some dense academic text written for the elite. Paine wrote in plain, powerful language that anyone could understand. He didn't just argue against British taxes. He attacked the very idea of monarchy itself. He called King George III a royal brute and described hereditary succession as an absurd and unjust system. Paine's argument was simple and devastatingly effective. Why should a tiny island an ocean away rule over a vast continent? He painted a vision of an independent America, a republic founded on the principles of liberty and self-governance, a beacon of freedom for the entire world. He wrote, "The sun never shined on a cause of greater worth. The cause of America is in a great measure the cause of all mankind." Common Sense was an absolute sensation. It sold an estimated 500,000 copies in a matter of months, at a time when the entire colonial population was only about 2.5 million. It was read aloud in taverns, homes, and public squares. It completely shifted public opinion. People who were once hesitant were now demanding independence. John Adams, who wasn't always Paine's biggest fan, later admitted that without the pen of the author of Common Sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. The pamphlet laid the groundwork for the Declaration of Independence, which was signed just 6 months later, but Paine wasn't done. When the Revolutionary War began, and things looked bleak for the Continental Army, he picked up his pen again. After a brutal retreat across New Jersey in the winter of 1776, with morale at an all-time low and soldiers deserting in droves, Paine published a new series of pamphlets called The American Crisis. Its opening lines are some of the most famous in American history. "These are the times that try many souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman." General George Washington was so moved by these words that he ordered them to be read aloud to his freezing, starving troops just before their daring Christmas crossing of the Delaware River to attack the Hessians at Trenton. Paine's words gave them the courage they needed. That surprise victory was a crucial turning point in the war, and Paine's writing played a vital role. He continued to publish the crisis papers throughout the war, bolstering spirits and rallying support whenever things looked grim. After the American Revolution was won, you'd think Paine would settle down and enjoy his status as a national hero. But that wasn't his style. The world was still full of injustice, and his work wasn't finished. In the 1790s, he moved to France to support the French Revolution. There, he wrote another hugely influential book, Rights of Man. It was a passionate defense of revolution and republican government and a direct rebuttal to critics of the French cause. The book was a bestseller in Britain, but it also got him into a lot of trouble. The British government, terrified his ideas would spark a revolution at home, charged him with seditious libel. He was tried and convicted in absentia and would have been arrested if he ever returned to England. In France, Paine was initially celebrated as a hero and even granted a seat in the French National Convention. But the revolution took a dark turn with the rise of the radical Jacobins and the Reign of Terror. Paine, who opposed the execution of King Louis XVI, fell out of favor. He was arrested and thrown into a Parisian prison, narrowly escaping the guillotine himself. It was in prison, facing death, that he began writing his most controversial work, The Age of Reason. In this book, Paine laid out his religious views. He was a deist, meaning he believed in God, but he rejected organized religion, the Bible, and the authority of the church. He saw them as human inventions designed to control and terrify mankind. He wrote, "My own mind is my own church." This book was a step too far for many. In America, a country in the midst of a religious revival, The Age of Reason was seen as a blasphemous attack on Christianity. When Paine finally returned to the United States in 1802 at the invitation of President Thomas Jefferson, he was no longer a hero. He was vilified. His former friends abandoned him, he was heckled in the streets, and the press branded him a filthy little atheist. The man who had once united a nation with his words was now an outcast. Thomas Paine died in 1809 in New York City, in poverty and obscurity. Only a handful of people attended his funeral. It was a tragic end for a man who had given so much to the cause of liberty. His legacy became so tarnished that a century later, Theodore Roosevelt famously dismissed him as that filthy little atheist. But history has a way of coming full circle. Today, we can look back and see Thomas Paine for what he truly was, a visionary, a radical thinker, and a master propagandist in the best sense of the word. His core ideas that government should serve the people, that all individuals have natural rights, and that ordinary people can and should change the world are as relevant today as they were over 200 years ago. He was a man who failed at almost everything until he found the one thing he was born to do, right. And with his pen, he helped topple a king, inspire an army, and give birth to a new nation. He reminds us that sometimes, the most powerful weapon of all isn't a sword or a gun, but an idea. So next time you hear the names of the founding fathers, remember the one who lit the fire. Remember the corset-maker's son who armed the American Revolution with its most powerful argument, common sense. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what you think about Thomas Paine. Was he a hero, a villain, or something in between? I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.